Alright guys, here we are. We are back. We're going to be talking about our guns in the centre position. We're going to be starting off with Zach Lomax. Let's get right into it. So, our most consistent centre by far last year. There's not a lot we need to say about Lomax. He's a young player. He's only played 2 and a bit seasons for one game in 2018. Absolute gun. Best player in the centre position. Kicking goals. Does everything you'd want. Averages close to 20 tackles. Averages just over 100 metres. But scores a lot of tries, and a Dragons team that weren't that great last year, he still played really well. He's another year older. He should go well again. I don't see much upside from 47. He might average close to 50, but that's as much as I see with Lomax. So if you want a gun centre, I wouldn't start with a gun centre, but if you want one, then he's your man for it. Very much similar with Bradman Best. We come in just slightly cheaper at $5.95 for an average of 44.5. And you can see he's a little bit more inconsistent, but has a good chance of going big in certain games. And given the fact that it's only going to be his third season, he had a stop-start year last year. Didn't start the season as he was injured. He came in round 3 and smashed it the first 3 games and added 300k to his starting price, but and then was injured at the end of round 12 and came back for the last game. So with Best, you can see the Knights are going to be a decent side, and if he's there for the majority of the year, I reckon he'll be able to build nicely into a season and push for some rep honours in the same sense that Lomax would, especially if they go well for the first sort of 10 rounds. But yeah, another really good centre. I think he'll score well, given the fact that he's super young, still just under 20 or 20 years old. Then he's going to be a great player for anyone's side. Tony Staggs, very much similar, decent player, little bit on and off last year as well. First 3 rounds, missed number 4, played 5, and then back for the rest of the season from 11 onwards. In a Broncos team that was terrible, he was their main shining light and scored a bunch of tries. In the process, he's someone that is a prolific try scorer and started doing a lot better in terms of his tackles through the back end of the season, having a few games with 19 tackles for 0 misses, 17 for 0 there. But if he can have a few more games like that, he should score really well and be someone that averages in the 40s, but I don't see him as having much upside as well. In a position where I feel like there's a little bit of value in the cheaper stuff and one that's very inconsistent, I wouldn't be putting him in my side at this current stage. Campbell Graham. Guys, if you're liking these videos, please hit the like button and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Let's move on to Campbell Graham. 43 average, 580k. Someone that's fairly inconsistent as well. A few 50s in there with a 70. And then towards the back end of the season, finished off really, really well. So 53, 73, 61, 46, 59, 60, and 40. Bumping up his average. And I don't see him averaging over 50. I think I see him averaging in a very similar number that he did last year. In a team that's going to do really well, and you can see him getting a bunch of tries and try assists there in the centre position going forward for the season. But I'd say he's just below the guys I've been talking about. I'd prefer them, definitely the guys like Best and Lomax over a Campbell Graham, for example. The interesting one we've got here is Aitken. So he moved to slightly lower price of $5.61, heads over to the Warriors, and you can see here really slow start to the season. Bunch of 20s and 30s before really kicks it off in round 8. So he's got a 69, a 63, a 69, 57, and then a couple of 40s to round out the year. So did really well and managed to score a few more tries in that period when the Dragons started playing a little bit better. He was a shining light along with Zach Lomax, and I feel like with the Warriors being a slightly better team than they have been in the past, there's a chance that he's going to get a fair bit of ball on that left side where I imagine he's going to play, and I think he is a good chance of averaging around 45. You can see when he came into the league in his first season, he was touted as one of the guns along with Jack Bird, and came in and scored some really big numbers. So it's something that he's done for the majority of his career. He had a very lean year in 2018, struggled a lot during that season, and with only a couple of good games in there. But other than that, he's come back and last year played a lot better, and I see him as having a little bit of upside, closer to 45. But again, I probably wouldn't be starting with him at this stage. of the season. All right, we move to Joey Manu. So guys, we've got the open up a Discord group. So I've put the link in the description below if you want to join that, and it's going to be mainly used for helping each other out, analyzing a few players. If you want, we can all discuss that in there in a little bit of a smaller format than on some of the Facebook groups. I think that'll be really helpful. And then coming in towards it once the season gets started, those late changes and talking through that will be really cool. So Joey Manu at 5.59, priced at 42. Again, we would have expected him to play a little bit better, score a little bit better, I should say, across last season, just with the fact that how strong the Roosters team was. But you can see he didn't score a mountain of tries. He got one in the first 10 rounds and then a bunch through the back end of the season, which you can see helped his scores a lot. When he does score a try, he's averaging over 50, and that's really helpful for him. He's cleaned up his defense a fair bit as he went through the season as well, and he had two really bad games, one with 5 misses and a 9 earlier on the season. But someone that should have some upside, but I don't see him as someone that you should bring into your team. Priced at 42 already is not a lot there to work with. All right, Chrichton. I'm going to say this right. Stephen. All right, Chrichton. All right. All right, comes in at 4.92, priced at 37. Basically, last year had to score a try to go well. You can see he got in the late 20s when he didn't score a try, but he scored a mountain of them. Right, he comes in and almost every game scored a try. Will he do that again this year? I don't think he will, but can he improve as a player? It's basically his first season. Played a few games in 2019, but can he score better than 37? I think he can in a team that's going to go really well. He just has to improve a few things. He's not someone that's a big workhorse coming out of his own half. Doesn't average a lot of meters. Only a couple of games with 160, and that includes some line breaks to 4 in one of these games to get him 160. So for him to improve, he's going to have to make a few more tackles and increase his meters, which with increased meters is going to increase the chances he's going to get some tackle busts, etc. But there's definitely a good chance that he can move into the 40 plus price bracket. So he would have 5 to 10 points of upside possibly. But again, I'd want to see that happen through the start of the season before bring him in, especially with the fact there's a good chance he's going to be in the Origin setup and might miss a couple of games through the middle. So maybe someone we bring in the back end of the year. That's my current thoughts on Chrichton. We move to Tyrone Peachey. So the Titans side, really interesting one. Where's he going to fit? Right, so we go to their projected team 2021. All right. Well, look at his stats beforehand. So plays fairly well everywhere. A couple of games in center, a game at second row. Second row for 80 minutes at 29 is not very exciting when he's someone that misses a bunch of tackles. You can see that he's got a bunch of 20s to start the year, and then he has spurts of really high scores, even in less minutes. He can go nuts with his tackle breaks and everything, but then he has some low points as well with playing 80 minutes in lock position for 34. So he's someone that if he's going to get a spot in the back row, there's some upside. But if we look at those teams for the Titans for the year, you can see that in the centers, you got Herbert and Kelly. Kelly's definitely going to be the mainstay, and it's going to work it out from there. But in the forwards, where's he got space? You got Tino, Proctor, and Fafita. If those guys get an injury, then you've got Bo Firma. You got those type of guys that might come in and get a spot. But Peachey's going to be spending sort of, you'd think 40 or 50 minutes on the bench and scoring okay. But if you look at what he's priced at, already at 39, there's not a lot of upside for him. If he managed to lock down a spot, then great. But if not, I think it's worth just leaving him out of the team. He's just so volatile in his scores, and I don't think that's good for any of us. Any of our brains, especially when we want to be trigger happy if he gets a couple of 30s, right? Brian Kelly is one of the more interesting ones in this situation, in this center guns chat. You can see he really started the year slow when the Titans were absolutely getting smashed, right? So if we correlate them getting beat to him not scoring well, which is very normal for backs, he did score tries, but when they don't have the ball a lot and getting smashed, then he's not going to score as well. If we take our attention to round 7 onwards, then he's much more consistent. There's a few 30s and a 40 in there with a couple of 60s. So to go along with an injury in one of his games, but to come back and finish here with 64 is great. So when he's scoring tries, he's usually scoring fairly well, and for someone that's average at price of 35, I think there might be a little bit of upside for him, getting closer to around 40. Again, very similar to Stephen Chrichton in the fact that he has to lift his tackle count a little bit more to what he did in the back end of the season, sort of at least double digits, looking towards 20, and then his meters gained is not too bad, but you still have a bunch of games in the 70s and 80s, and then a few more length of the field runs when he's making 2 line breaks through those sections there. As we follow down the line there, 13 and 14 with a couple of line breaks is when he gets his big meters, but there's a little bit of a chance that he has some upside, and I wouldn't tell you not to put him in your side at this stage. But there you go, guys. There's the gun section for the centers. There's probably not a lot to talk about here. Probably a little bit more in our next video, in the cows video. But that's all I want to say on these guys, and I hope you have a good one, guys. Good luck picking your center position.